The project Building Bridges with Language is part of a study conducted at Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa on the use of internet tools for English language teaching. Learners of English as a foreign language rarely have the opportunity of experiencing the authentic use of the language. This can be arranged in the classroom but not experienced as such. And we believe that this will boost learners' autonomy and language skills. When casually at a conference two English teachers met, the opportunity arose to place in practice something that they shared. That was the beginning of the project Building Bridges with Language. When designing the project, one of the initial decisions that was crucial was which collaborative tool we would use, and our option for the wiki was fairly obvious because it allows for writing and editing as well as uploading audio and video files, and in fact these were the products that our students would be making, but it would allow also for commenting, and we would like students to have some kind of informal forum where they could collaborate rather than just the institutional, if you want, collaboration that the project itself promoted. The project had three main goals. The first one was to raise awareness to the differences and similarities between cultures and perspectives on life, and through that awareness promote tolerance. The second one would be to enhance the learners' writing and speaking skills, and the third one to develop their critical thinking towards learning. Raising awareness towards differences, this first goal that we had in mind, would be attained, and that was our premise, through the contact among the students themselves within the classes, as the Portuguese class included students whose nationality was not Portuguese but Cape Verdean and Angolan, and also by promoting the contact between the students studying in Portugal and the students studying in Iran. Our emphasis on pair and group work would also make this more evidenced, and as the tasks required were mostly collaborative, we believed that this collaboration in class and between classes would help students be aware of the differences among them and also to be tolerant towards those same differences. Objective number 2, developing students' autonomy and also their written and spoken skills in English language, we believe we would attain by giving students the responsibility for selecting the information, designing the products, and also producing the materials themselves. For instance, the voice thread presentations, the photo story introduction, they would all have to decide by themselves. They would have to select information, so they would have to read different materials, select from the materials, design the products, then produce the presentations. So all of this would lead to boosting their skills in written and spoken English. As far as the third objective is concerned, we believe that by promoting the autonomy and the responsibility of the students as far as their products are concerned would help them to have a critical thinking on the learning and their learning experience. Besides, a questionnaire would be given at the end of the semester on the resources, on the materials, on the project itself, and students would have to express their opinion on how these tools, how these resources had an impact on their learning experience. And by asking them about this, they would be able to reflect and express their opinion on their learning experience throughout the semester. However, and even before the project began, a placement test was given to students so that classes would have a very similar, all the students in the classes would have a similar level of English, or at least a minimum skills in English that would allow them to communicate with the other classroom students, as well as with the students from the other nationalities. Besides that, and even before the project was begun, students were explained in detail of all the procedures, all of the projects that would be involved, all the products they would have to make, and also the expected outcomes, so that when the project began, we were all together as a group. Not just the teacher, but the whole class as a group knew exactly what the objectives were, how we would attain those objectives, and what were the expected outcomes. So what were the products that students would have to make? Well, the first one was to design and create a presentation on their country, so in this case on Portugal. We discussed possible themes that would interest students of higher education institutions in other countries about Portugal. And all of those suggestions were written on the board, and groups because the class was already divided into groups decided then which themes interest them the most, and so the ones that they would make a presentation about using VoiceThread. That was the first tool that was going to be used in the products. The second product was an individual introduction. Students would select and organize their information. So we have different photo stories, as photo story is the tool used for this product, depending on the student's interests and willingness to share details on their lives. So we have some on, for instance, their tastes and hobbies. We have photo stories on their lives from the moment they were born up to now. We have photo stories on the academic life, so what is the day in the life of each of this student in particular. We have some on, for instance, their late holidays. So we have different stories, different photo stories, as the tool allows for photos, for voice, and also for music. The project also evidence students, for instance, tastes in music. Once these two products were completed and uploaded to the wiki, students would have to read the information provided by the foreign counterparts. So in our case, the Portuguese students had to read the information provided by the Iranian students. And based on what they already knew about Iran and based on what they were reading, they would have to organize a list of questions. This list would then be sent to the Iranian students, who would answer them, and so we would have some kind of online interview. Initially, we had planned to do this using voice, but in fact it was almost impossible to use a lot of these tools in Iran, so we had to let go some of our initial ideas. The final product would be having an online magazine with articles. So all this information that students had collected would be used for an article on Iran. The information sources that were available were very similar to the information sources journalists would have, and the Portuguese students were attending communication science, so this would be an authentic use of English language. So the sources would be the materials provided by the Iranian students, the answers to the interviews, and of course the internet sources that are available to all the students. The covers of the online magazine Building Bridges with Language were designed by the Portuguese students, and the organization, so the layout of the magazine, is also the responsibility of a group of Portuguese students. You can check the online magazine on the site you have in the slide. This project met many challenges, the main one being the differences in internet accessibility, as in Iran a lot of the tools that were used and even the wiki were not accessible to students. So the first thing we had to do was to change the collaborative tool. We stopped using the wiki and started using Google Docs for interchange, but the wiki remained as a place where students, Portuguese students, would post and upload their products. So there were also differences in the tools used. Whereas the Portuguese students were able to use VoiceThread, PhotoStory, etc., the Iranian students used PowerPoint, for instance, or even just doc products. And some of the student-made products were impossible to share. Some of the photo stories were very heavy. They could not be uploaded to Google Docs. When they were uploaded to the wiki, they had to be first uploaded to YouTube and then placed on the wiki. But Iranian students had no access to the wiki nor to YouTube, so they could not see these photo stories. Finally, we would like to share the students' perception on the impact that this project had on their learning. And as you can see, we had several tools and resources made available on the e-learning platform, which was the place in inverted commas where everybody met outside classes. And you can see that the project with Iran is one of the tools, one of the resources that students selected as being one of the most important. These results have led us to revise the project, but continue the project in the following year, though with some changes introduced. And in fact, we would love to include other universities, other nationalities in such a project, because the results have led us to believe that the initial premise is correct. Providing students with an authentic use of English will definitely improve their learning experience. Thank you, and do contact us if you believe this project is something that you would be interested in.